Hi, everybody. I'm Kelsey Anderson.
And I'm Dave Graber.
Welcome to Buffalo Brief today. It is Wednesday. Feels like my Monday. I had a couple days off. But we are talking about something that we've been talking about for years here in Western New York. I remember when I was in college. So I went to Ithaca College, but a lot of my friends went to Canisius. Yeah. And it was really one of the only times I had taken the train from Canisius to kind of like the downtown core when I came back home to visit. But there are going to be so many more college students in the next couple of decades who get the opportunity to take the train downtown into other areas, and then not just college students, but so many more folks as well. So we are talking about the NFTA rail line expansion, and this month they cleared a major hurdle, the last step of the federal environmental review process. So we are going to bring in Jeff Amplement, the NFTA Planning Projects Manager, to explain exactly what that hurdle was, what was involved in that, and then an update on this massive project. Jeff, thank you.
Sure, my pleasure to be here, as always.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the history of this project. As Kelsey said, this is one that has been on the books and on the minds of Western New Yorkers and the NFTA for many, many years. Can you kind of walk us back to where we started, how many years this started, and kind of how we got to where we are today?
Yeah, sure. I mean, boy, going back way back to when we built the original Metro Rail in the early 1980s, late 1970s, that was part of kind of a larger network of transit lines for the entire region. We had lines going to the north towns, the south towns, airport. And one of those lines was to connect the downtown area to the UB North Campus, which was under construction at that time. Because of some funding constraints at the time, the federal funding program kind of dried up in the late 1970s. We only constructed the line up to the UB South Campus. But fast forward now, 40 years later, and you think about what's happened in that corridor in the town of Amherst over that period, some rapid population growth, the growth of the University of Buffalo, obviously 30,000 students, faculty, staff there, commercial development throughout the corridor. You can see it every day for those that drive that corridor and get kind of stuck near that blue water tower. There's a lot of travel back and forth, congestion, of course. And that really is a testament of the kind of development that's going on in that corridor. So around 2010, we revisited this project and we said, where don't we take a look at an enhanced transit line through this corridor again? Not necessarily Metro Rail, but just kind of all options were on the table. And we did what's called an alternatives analysis. And we looked at a variety of modes, a variety of alignments for serving that corridor. We evaluated them on engineering characteristics, costs, economic development potential, ridership potential, all kinds of stuff. And what bubbled to the top for us was that a light rail extension using what we're calling the Niagara Falls Boulevard alignment really best met the purpose and need for that, and that's what we advanced towards the environmental review process that just concluded last month.
Excellent.
All right, let's go right into that review process. So what was involved in that, and how long did that kind of take?
Well, it took quite a long time. It's generally, anytime you propose a large infrastructure project that will utilize federal or state funds, you have to review the potential impacts of those projects across a whole host of socioeconomic areas, right? Noise, vibration, land use impacts, property acquisition, all kinds of stuff. And where what we call adverse impacts are identified, right, there might be a negative impact of the project, you have to come up with a mitigation measure that would, kind of minimize those impacts, right? So in 2021, the Federal Transit Administration kind of hopped on board and said, you're likely going to apply for federal funding for this project. We're willing to take on the responsibility as the federal lead agency for this process. And so that kicked off what's called the National Environmental Policy Act process, the NEPA process. And so it's been about 4 years, a little over 4 years that we advanced that. And just arrived at the record of decision. So FTA released that. I suspect you want to know what's involved with the record of decision, right? So it basically memorializes FTA's review of the build alternatives that are analyzed, the potential impacts, and their concurrence that the mitigation measures we proposed are appropriate for this project. And it really also concludes that despite any adverse impacts that may come of these projects, the benefits that are resulting from these projects, whether it's transportation, access, economic development, that's in the public good and outweighs the potential negative impacts.
And you had proposed a light rail extension, a bus rapid transit line. There was a no-build alternative, kind of just to see, that side of things. And then the light rail transit extension, that was kind of approved as the best option out of all of this as well. Can you explain that?
Yeah, well, the no-build alternative is really the baseline, right? So you compare all the build alternatives against what is the future condition like if we do nothing. And then you do compare it against those conditions. The light rail transit alternative, at the end of the day, compared to the bus rapid transit option or just doing nothing, provides really the best ridership potential, the best economic development potential, the best travel time savings. It really best met the purpose and need and their overall goals for the project. And that's what we've decided to move forward with and to further design and hopefully secure funding for construction down the road here.
Great.
So what does that, you said of those three decisions, which of those was the most viable? It was the combo of the surface and the rail?
So it's an all light rail alternative.
Got it.
It will be partially underground and mostly above ground though. So currently at the UB South campus, the train is underground, right? So that's where it is now. And for us to come above ground, we'd have to alight. The proposal is to do that near Kenmore and Niagara Falls Boulevard, that intersection.
Got it. That's what I was going to ask. Like that pathway, it then would what? Take a right?
Correct. Yep.
Got
So
it.
we'll travel all the way up Niagara
Got
Falls
it.
Boulevard, make a right on Maple near the Boulevard Mall, continue up Sweet Home Road to the UB North campus, and end really just beyond that at the I-990 interchange.
This video, this image that we're seeing here was among the three alternatives, I think, right?
Yep.
Is this the one that we are talking about, the one that is the most viable?
That's correct.
Got it. So
Actually, so this is actually the bus rapid transit
Got it.
alternative.
Okay.
The alignments are exactly the same, except for the underground portion at the UB South campus. And then we also have a small tunnel proposed for the Maple and Sweet Home intersection. There's just a lot of traffic conflicts there that we wouldn't be able to operate a train through. But other than that, the alignment is the same.
So generally, of these, are we going to be seeing situations where the rail runs in the middle of the streets, kind of like that?
That's correct. Yep. So the proposal is a center running alignment for most of the alignment.
Sure.
There are portions of it will be on the right side of the road. Utilizing Audubon Parkway, we actually proposed to, so if you're familiar with Audubon now, it's a two-way lane centered, separated by a median. The town has long-range plans to actually move all traffic to the western side of that because the traffic there just doesn't justify having multi-lanes.
Agreed, right.
And then we would completely just take over the other side of the roadway for light rail exclusive transportation.
Wow.
What is the timeline we're looking at? I know that you guys would like to break ground next year. So let's talk about the timeline, and then we can talk about funding as well, because those two things are correlated.
Yeah, I think it's a little aggressive to think we're going to break ground next year. We still have 2 to 3 more years of engineering work to do.
Okay.
And we do have to go through the federal funding process. That's a multi-year process, but those can operate concurrently, design and the federal funding process. Ideally, if that goes smoothly, we're able to secure the local funding. We get through the federal process as well. I think we could realistically have shovels in the ground near the end of the decade, maybe early 2030s.
2030s.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I must have read something wrong. But okay, great.
I mean, that is coming up on, I mean, even though we're saying conceptually this is still a couple of years out, or maybe breaking ground not till 2030, or in that decade, we're saying, so it couldn't even be then. This still has cleared that major federal hurdle. Even though we've been talking about it since your high school days and on and on and on, this still is a major milestone in the breadth of this entire project, right?
Correct. I mean, other than maybe having the federal government actually sign a check for us,
right.
This is usually the largest hurdle for these projects to overcome across the country because it opens up the project to like, where are all the potential hurdles for you to overcome, right? And there's a lot of potential impacts that go along with these projects. You have to take a hard look at those and come up with mitigation. And that's a difficult process, right? And it's obviously taken us several years to get through that. But we're really proud of our process. We didn't rush it. We really involved the public too. We held over 40 public meetings of some variety for this, brought in a lot of input, really helped inform not only that process, but also our design moving forward too. Really valuable stuff.
Talk about what some of the neighbors, have said in these 40 different meetings. And I know we've covered several of these meetings as well. And I do want to say, you've been very transparent with this project. Yeah. So talk about what some of the neighbors are saying. Obviously, you've gotten a lot of positive feedback. Anything specifically negative that you guys have had to work around throughout this process?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of stakeholders involved with a project of this magnitude, right? There's the public agencies, of course, the towns, the state, University of Buffalo is obviously a major stakeholder. And you're right, then the local residents. And even within that, there's different neighborhoods that we're impacting as a result. And they have different concerns or stakes in that project. When we think about the southern segment of the alignment near Niagara Falls Boulevard, there's certainly concerns there with access. Am I going to be able to get into my driveway while you're constructing this? The businesses, what's going to happen? Are people going to be able to come to my business while you're constructing? We move north to the Audubon area. There's noise and vibration concerns. It's kind of a quieter neighborhood. But I'm really proud and happy to say that we heard all of that. None of that was a surprise to us, too, going into the environmental review process. And those really are all addressed in that process. And the beauty of a final environmental impact statement is, after we had our public hearing, we had 45 days of public comment period. We're required to respond to every single comment that we get as part of that process. We got over 800 comments as part of that. And so every single one of those is documented in the final EIS and has a response either that clarifies some information or helps you find something within the document. So we really believe we followed a very thorough process in that regard.
Yeah.
I imagine part of the time that is going to be factored in to when this would be finished or when it would really get substantially worked on. Eminent domain has to be a part of the equation here, I would imagine, right? Is the project, our project managers factoring that in? Because as we know in town of Tonawanda, city of Buffalo, in many situations, that's a process of eminent domain that could take years and really bog down a major project like this.
Yeah.
One that does have a greater public good, right? Can you talk maybe about some of that, and maybe not necessarily exclusively about eminent domain, but other sort of extraneous factors, because there are many of them.
Yeah. Eminent domain is an interesting question. It's not necessarily the optimal route. Like property acquisition could be a negotiation process as well. We don't have to exercise our powers of eminent domain if we don't have to. Preferably, we don't. And at this point, we have 100, and I forget what it was, somewhere in the neighborhood, 150, 170 properties identified in our EIS for some kind of acquisition. But most of that is actually partial acquisition.
Right.
So we're not saying we need to take 100% of all these properties, everyone's home and the businesses. It's really mostly attributed to right-of-way widening.
Right.
And so we'll work that out with the applicable agencies, whether that's the state DOT, this is a DOT road, Niagara Falls Boulevard, where most of the acquisitions are identified. We'll work that out with the property owners. But you're right, there is a lot that goes into that. But we're going to start that process as soon as we can. But that really depends on the design, too. And so we're not going to alarm neighbors that we're going to possibly be coming through and impacting their properties when we don't know that yet for sure. I'm happy to say that over the course of this project, we have done a very good job of actually reducing those right-of-way needs over time. And we anticipate still being able to do that as engineering advances and we realize, well, maybe we don't need this property here and stuff like that. So
take the conflict out of it.
That's correct.
Then you don't have to worry about it.
That's right.
That's good.
How many, I know that a part of the project is, getting fewer cars out on the roads, that sort of thing. Could you talk about that and how many fewer cars or miles traveled, that sort of thing, we could see across Western New York when we see this expansion?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, too. It's hard to kind of understand within that corridor vehicle movements as they relate to people that are coming from outside the area or those that are just traveling within it, too. Our goal is to... you're familiar with Niagara Falls Boulevard. It's one of the most congested roadways in the entire region, right?
Yeah.
And so some people say, well, how can you possibly put a train down the middle of that and make traffic conditions any better? And it's a good question, but you have to remember there will be some kind of modal shift as a result of this project, particularly at the UB audience, right? I mean, you have a lot of students that, they use the Stampede now that follows a different route, but there are those that also come from off-campus housing, et cetera, that we would be able to kind of attract to this project too. But also remember, there are a lot of people that live in the city that are traveling to the town of Amherst for the jobs that are there too. So that will not only impact this corridor, but also some of the adjoining roadways too. We hope to see some benefits there as well.
Do we think that ridership would increase based on this expansion? I mean, not just there are now geographically more people in an area where you can grab them or they could go to it, but do we think more people will take advantage of it now that you do have that ability to go from downtown all the way out to past the 990 or something like that? These are capabilities that this region has never been seen before, so maybe ridership would go up. Is that what you guys are thinking?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, it definitely will increase as a result of the project. You have to remember, now you're increasing access to, as you mentioned, a population that currently doesn't have that.
Yeah.
If it's convenient, if it works for folks, they're going to take it. So we have two different kinds of folks we're talking here. Those that don't really have options for transportation. They can't drive a car for a variety of reasons. And so they rely on our services. This is going to enhance access for them significantly, our transit-dependent populations. But those that even have an option, like me, for example, I actually live in this neighborhood. I can drive.
Yeah.
But I take the train every day because I find it's a little more convenient.
A little cheaper?
Certainly cheaper, right? And it just makes a lot more
comfortable,
sense.
too.
Yeah, why not? Let somebody else do it.
I took it the other day from, where was I? Oh, Shays, down to, we were going to dinner down near the arena. And a Sabres game was happening, so we really didn't plan that out at all, that there would be absolutely no parking near the restaurant that we wanted to go to. So I said, guys, there is a train. And in a lot of minds of people who grew up in the suburbs, they don't realize that is like an option. So I think this project will also expand the horizons of folks who don't realize that is an option, because it really hasn't been an option for so long. Beyond, busing has been an option in all of those areas, but not really the rail line.
And honestly, so I've also taken it to Sabres games, and maybe you can attest to this, but the train is packed.
Yeah.
Right? It's packed to and from those games.
Yep.
And this really goes for all events downtown too. And so again, extending this out to the north towns also provides access for people that don't even live in Amherst or the Tonawondas, but if you're coming down from further north, it makes a really good option for you. We're going to have park and rides that are proposed as part of this project at the Boulevard Mall and at the end of the line there in the north. Again, really good accessibility options for folks.
Wow, that didn't even occur to me, but now all of a sudden I'm thinking about the relief that will provide and how packed those trains are going to be around the holidays along. So will there be stops along Niagara Falls Boulevard, or is that I don't know what you guys call it, is it a throughway or what have you, where there are no stops, but there are stops?
Oh, there's definitely stops. Yep, there's 10 proposed stops as part of the project. They're about 1.5, 2 miles separation between. That's pretty standard for most rail lines. That way you can get up to adequate speeds and whatnot. But 3 on Niagara Falls Boulevard, 1 on Maple, 1 on Sweet Home, a couple going up Audubon as well.
Based on that and those stops, and I guess maybe you did, I'm assuming you factored this in, the NFTA, based on the future growth of that area along the boulevard with Station 12, with Boulevard Mall redevelopment, all that stuff, plus the actual construction of homes in that area. I mean, what is the economic impact? That has to be a big part of this. You talk about the public good. What did you guys have? Did the NFTA have a final number or an about number, or like this is the economic impact of this expansion and what that is?
And that's a really good question too. Not only looking at the projections for this quarter, but how does this project play a part in helping those communities realize
big time
this development? Because if you look at other cities around the country, these light rail projects have a pretty significant way of attracting different kinds of development, whether it's housing or commercial or mixed-use development, because you have a captive audience that's coming through in one spot, right? The train's not moving at these stations, and people are going to be getting off and on there multiple times a day. That really presents an interesting opportunity for developers, right? And so we looked at this project as a way to help catalyze that, to help these municipalities achieve that. And think of the Boulevard Mall, for example. Having a station not too far from there might really do a lot of good for a potential developer.
If it's a mixed use, absolutely.
Correct. And particularly housing too, right? I mean, to have housing, and I'm not talking about, single family housing, but, apartment complex, a little bit higher density near a train, that not only helps these folks, but also drives our ridership, right? And that helps our funding. There's a lot of good that comes, through that. As far as numbers goes, we did look at preliminary economic impact numbers that we could see. We certainly saw increased property values, tax revenues that could come as any result of the increased commercial activity. And really, when you think of the construction jobs related to just this in a short period of time, there's a lot of downstream impacts that you can get from that too. So we're talking in the billions of dollars of impacts here.
That's fantastic.
And I feel like you go to any other big city, this is something they've had for a long time. I mean, I go to a lot of Bills games that are out of town, and most times I take a rail line from my hotel or downtown to the Bills Stadium. So I know this is kind of how I ended the last time with you, Jeff. So I know we haven't even broke ground. This is a huge milestone for you. I'm very excited for you and the NFTA. When could we see this kind of expand south now, maybe toward Orchard Park?
No, we get those questions a lot, like, why not go here and there? Yeah. I will say that, so we just opened up our DL&W terminal this past year, right?
Yes.
And one of the bigger challenges to going to the airport or south with light rail is that we had no way of actually getting through our end-of-the-line train shed, which is where we maintain and store the trains. As part of that project, we specifically made strategic decisions and alignments there and other infrastructure that would help us pop out of the back of the DL&W in the future if we could. We have to maintain our focus on this project.
Yes, of
and
course.
I know we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but if we can't do it here, I got to be honest with you, we're not going to be able to do it anywhere because this one just has the best opportunities for us to compete for federal funding. It has the highest concentration of people and jobs in the region. It makes the most sense today. But if we could show that we can do this here successfully, that we can implement it, we can construct it, we can get over the hurdles of any of the potential impacts, there's no telling where else we could also construct it in the future. Showing people that this works for them.
That's great. And you would think, and it's almost counterintuitive. You would think that because there are, I don't know, from the DL&W down to the South Towns, let's say to Orchard Park, it's almost like there's less dense of a population there and more throughway for you to, I don't know, get a train through there. But that's not the case. What the government wants is actually the most impact, the most positive impact is what
right.
I mean. Not the most people where they're going to take advantage of the ridership, the biggest economic impact. It might be easier perhaps to the South Towns because it'd be an easier route, maybe. But the North Towns is where, not the money is, but I mean, figuratively speaking, where the money is.
It has to justify the investment at the end of the day. I mean, when you're asking, people for their taxpayer dollars, whether it's from federal or local sources, we have to justify that money is going to go towards, positive outcomes, right?
Makes sense. It really does.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate the update. I'm sure we will call you and Kelly Khatib, the communications person over there, to set this up again, because this is a massive project that we want, continued updates on. So we appreciate it.
We did not think that we were going to get 20 minutes out of this, to be honest with you, Jeff. Fantastic job, man. This is a major, huge project that's been going on long before you got to the NFTA. You've got a fantastic handle on this, and you did a great job of explaining it. So thank you for being so clear with all this.
Oh, yeah. And we obviously have a lot more to do.
Yeah.
But the public process is not over.
Yeah.
We're going to continue to engage with the public moving forward. I'm happy to always come back as needed and certainly provide updates to our neighbors.
All right, Jeff, thank you.
Great job. Thanks.
And thank you for joining us for Buffalo Brief. We will see you tomorrow.